In this segment, I want to talk about how to take care of number two. Earlier, we told you how to take care of number one. This is number two. A very, very inexpensive solution to taking care of life's necessity is getting a 2.5-gallon bucket. Now, this bucket was left over from some protein powder that I had back in the days when I used to work out. As you can tell, it hasn't happened lately, but we're going to get back in the gym one day. So, what you want to do is first get your bucket. You want to cut a hole in the top of the bucket so you'll have a place to sit. This is a rather large hole, but you want to make sure the hole is big enough that you don't have any overage. So the next thing you want to do is take a kitchen shopping bag and line that bucket and then put your top back on so it holds that plastic in place. The next thing you want to do is take 5 to 6 scoops of kitty litter and add it into your bucket. And so now you got your kitty litter in there, and that way you can use this. When you're done, you can remove your seat, close up the bag, shake up the contents. It'll instantly dry out whatever you put in there. You should only use this for number 2, not number 1. That's what the water bottle is for. And you can layer this. So you can put a plastic bag, your scoops of kitty litter, and you can repeat that probably about 3 times. And then that way, in case you have to reuse this, then it's ready in the event you have a bad stomach day. So another good idea to using this is to place this, if you have a car and you have fold down back seats and you're able to open those seats from the inside of the vehicle, what you want to do is just take this and put this behind the back seat on the passenger side, so that way in the event you need it, you can just recline your seat, you can scurry to the back, you can fold that seat down, you can put this on the seat, you can sit there, take care of business, and then once business is taken care of, then you can just close it up like I said before, put it back in the trunk, close the back seat, you're all set. If you have an SUV or some other type of vehicle, then you got to be creative. One of the last things I want to cover is filming inside a vehicle can sometimes be difficult because you get reflections. You might have reflections from your pants, you might have reflections from your car's interior, and I think I showed that in another vehicle segment, and you may want to look for that on my channel. And if also, you might want to just go ahead and subscribe to my channel at this time so you can get future updates on future videos. Okay, so in order to combat reflections in your vehicle, you might want to bring with you a couple of pieces of black material. And I personally use black spandex material because it's actually, if you put it very close to you, it's see-through. And if you're in your vehicle, and maybe if you're lucky enough to have a surveillance vehicle with a black interior, you can actually sit in your seat and you can drape this over you, and you will actually look like part of the seat and nobody will even see you sitting there in the event that you're in a location where you're concerned that people are going to see you in the vehicle. So another thing this is good for, like I said before, if you happen to have your notepad on the seat in front of you, and it's reflected into the window you're filming out of, you don't want to break that continuity in your video. If this is close by, what you can do is you can just carefully reach for it, take it, drape it over whatever's causing reflection. It takes it out of your scene, and you never broke that continuity that was very, very important. Another thing I want to discuss in your choice of surveillance vehicles is always try to go with a 4-door vehicle. 4-door vehicles have a larger cabin compartment, and it makes it a lot easier for you to move around inside the vehicle or crawl into the back seat in the event that you are in a location where you want to be able to sit in the back seat and have people notice you in the front seat. If you live in a state where tinting your front windows is not an option, you definitely want to go with a SUV or a minivan or a vehicle that has 4 doors, so you can always make sure that you can quickly get into the back seat. Now, cars don't lend themselves to hopping into the back seat as much as a minivan does, but a minivan is not always a choice of vehicles because they're not as popular as they used to be. I personally think that a small SUV is your best choice. Very easy to park and very easy to move around in, So consider that when you're choosing your vehicle. Again, many of your surveillance vehicles might turn out to be used, so you might have to shop around, or you might even pay a little bit more to find the vehicle you like with the color interior choice, as well as the exterior color choice that you like. Some of the best colors for surveillance vehicles are charcoal gray, champagne color, or a medium blue. And I always like to have a vehicle where the color itself is kind of confusing. So they might see the vehicle during the day, it might look like it's blue. At night, it might look like it's black. Or you might want to have a vehicle that's kind of like a charcoal gray or medium gray, so that if you have asphalt streets, it kind of blends into the street behind you, so that you kind of blend in with the traffic a little bit more. The offset to that is, remember, when you have a vehicle that blends into its environment more, you're more likely to get into an accident. So make sure you consider that when you choose your vehicle. Also, when you're choosing your vehicle, choosing a vehicle that is dark or black is not always a very good choice. And the reason being is, when people see a black car with black tinted windows parked on their residential street, it looks very ominous. It looks very scary. It looks like it's a vehicle that you see in the movies where the guy's going to roll down the window and pull out a gun and mow a bunch of people down. That brings undue attention to your surveillance vehicle. So when you choose your vehicle, choose a vehicle with a color choice that's not going to expose you or make you stand out in your neighborhood. Another thing I want to discuss is parking your surveillance vehicle. When you park your surveillance vehicle, you never want to be an island. You want to make sure that you park at a location that blends in with its surrounding. For example, if you're parking on a residential street and there's no trees and no fences, then you want to try to park between two houses. Now you're going to stand out a little bit, but what you're going to do is you're going to kind of confuse the neighbors a little bit. If the neighbor on the left looks out and sees your vehicle parked on the street and it's between the two houses, he's going to assume that you're visiting his neighbor, and vice versa. Next, as I said before, if you have an opportunity, you always want to park underneath a tree that provides shade and comfort. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you park with the sun behind your vehicle with respect to wherever your subject location is going to be. That way the sun shining towards their eyes will help you blend into your background, because it's going to create a backlight situation. Your next choice is always to find a privacy fence or a tall row of hedges, or park within other vehicles, whether it's on the street or in a parking lot. If you have a car, then you want to park amongst other cars. If you have a SUV or a taller profile vehicle, you want to park amongst other tall profile vehicles, with some exceptions. If you're trying to videotape a subject in a parking lot, then of course you don't want to park behind vehicles that are going to block your shot. So there's a lot of things to consider in surveillance, so keep that in mind. Do a little practice, go out to different parking lots, parking vehicles, and just kind of get an idea of some of the things you're going to have to deal with and consider before you park, because the more you park and the more you move around is going to get you noticed. In this part of the segment, I want to talk to you about filming at night from inside your surveillance vehicle. Here's what you need to consider. When you're filming at night, your viewfinder or your screen is going to create a glow from the light coming from the camcorder, particularly when it's dark inside your vehicle. If you've ever been driving down the highway, you notice that somebody has a TV on, and it's very easy to see that light from very, very far away. The same goes for when you're doing a surveillance. So what you want to do is, before we talked about bringing that piece of material with you, to drape it over your camera, and that way it makes it harder for people to see you. Okay? If you're filming from a vehicle, maybe it's a rental vehicle, and you don't have very, very strong window tint, this is another effective way that if you have to get very close to that window, and remember, if you're videotaping from the inside of a surveillance vehicle, you want to try to remain at least 5 to 6 inches away from the window. And another thing that you can do if you really want to be covert and you're really worried about being seen is you can just drape this over your head.